Today in Imperial recklessness and insanity. The International Criminal Court has formally issued arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant for war crimes and crimes against humanity. No such arrest warrants were issued for President Biden or any of the other Western officials who've been backing Israel's genocidal atrocities, which is a bit like a judge issuing a warrant for a mass murderer, but not for the guy who gave him the gun and stood next to him handing him ammunition and drove the getaway car and lied to the police to cover up the crime. Nothing will come of this new development because it is completely unenforceable, and international law is only as real as the U.S. empire agrees to pretend it is. But it is a significant step in the deterioration of international consensus on Israel as the entire world watches the Zionist regime commit atrocity after atrocity right out in the open. Predictably, Benjamin Netanyahu has responded to this decision by shrieking about anti-Semitism and calling the ICC's move a modern Dreyfus trial. He is doing this because he does not have anything resembling a real argument in his defense, and neither does anyone else. We saw this illustrated in a statement from Senator Tom Cotton, who proclaimed that the U.S. would invade The Hague if the ICC tries to enforce its arrest warrants. The ICC is a kangaroo court, and Karim Khan is a deranged fanatic, Cotton said. Woe to him and anyone who tries to enforce these outlaw warrants. Let me give them all a friendly reminder. The American law on the ICC is known as the Hague Invasion Act for a reason. Think about it. This is as psychotic a public statement as anything you'll see from the most far-right extremists in the Knesset. The United States is run by demented zealots with nukes, just like Israel. The Hague Invasion Act, formerly known as the American Service Members Protection Act, is a U.S. federal law passed during the warmongering frenzy of the early Bush administration, which authorizes the president to use all means necessary and appropriate to bring about the release of any U.S. or allied personnel being detained or imprisoned by or on behalf of or at the request of the International Criminal Court. That "or allied personnel" bit is why Cotton is able to cite this law in reference to an arrest warrant for Israelis. Speaking of Israel and U.S. senators, a bill by Bernie Sanders to block a shipment of tank shells to Israel was just killed in the Senate by a vote of 18 to 79. Sanders framed the bill as an effort to restrict the sale of offensive arms to Israel, making a distinction from defensive arms like the Iron Dome, which is absurd and obfuscatory to begin with. All arms to Israel are offensive rather than defensive in nature, and that they are all used to help Israel murder people without experiencing the deterrence they would receive from a retaliatory response. There's a reason body armor is regulated in a way that's similar to firearms. It's because someone who wants to commit a violent crime can wear a bulletproof vest while doing so to ensure that they can perpetrate the crime without being stopped by police. That's exactly how Israel uses its so-called defensive weaponry. And speaking of progressive U.S. lawmakers taking feeble stands on Israel, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has come under fire for voting to support the House Resolution 1449, a bill which purports to simply denounce anti-Semitism, but in reality promotes the false conflation of anti-Semitic hate speech with speech that is critical of Israel. Progressive Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who voted against the bill, said in a statement that she did so because, quote, the bill endorses the harmful definition of IHRA that dangerously conflates legitimate criticism of Israel to anti-Semitism and further harms our ability to address anti-Semitism. Everywhere you look, it's powerful criminals getting away with far too much, while the people who are supposed to be resisting them do far too little. This happens as Russia hits Ukraine with a new type of hypersonic missile, which Putin went out of his way to mention could easily have been equipped with a nuclear warhead. The attack was a warning to Ukraine for using long-range missiles supplied by the US and UK to strike targets inside Russia, and occurs as Moscow revises its nuclear doctrine, lowering the threshold for when nuclear weapons may be used. This is unsustainable. It cannot continue. One way or another, all this madness is going to come to an end.